Emma. Yeah, great. Thank you, Emma. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for attending this presentation by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation covering the Invasive Species Grant Program, Round 4. Again, my name is Josh Teal. I'm with New York State DEC Division of Lands and Forests, Invasive Species Coordination Section. I also want to recognize some other program experts that will be speaking later on in the webinar, Scott Jameson, Nia Kraus, Steve Pearson, and Jessica Cancelleri. Also, the latter half of the webinar will include presentation by New York State ITS Representative Brad McMillian. Next slide. So a quick overview of our agenda today. So I'll cover some of the quick background of ISGP, funding basics, eligibility, bid requirements, and then I'm going to pass off and we'll transition to specific category descriptions by co-hosts today, and then come back to me and we'll discuss scoring and timeline, and then we'll have time for programmatic questions related to all of the material we covered. When we conclude with that programmatic portion, then the second half, as I alluded to earlier, will be a discussion by Brad McMillian again about SFS grants management application process. Next slide. Yeah, so a quick background on the ISGP. It's intended to create opportunities for municipalities, not-for-profits, and academic institutions to enact projects that address the impacts of invasive species by including categories covering prevention, control, research, and restoration or resiliency projects. In short, it's a way for the state and for DEC to provide funding to local groups to enact important projects related to invasive species. I hope if you're here on the webinar that you have found where the RFA is located on our website, but if not, the link is on the screen right there. We're also putting links into the chat box that are relevant to the ISGP. If you can't find that link directly, you can also go to DEC's main webpage, dec.ny.gov, and if you searched in the search window, invasive grants, it should be the first one that pops up. Should be pretty easy to find. Next, please. It's important to know that the ISGP is funded by the New York State Environmental Protection Fund, and it's administered by DEC. It's also designed to meet the goals of the New York State Environmental Conservation Law related to invasive species and also the New York State Invasive Species Comprehensive Management Plan. Since 2016, the ISGP has awarded approximately $9.5 million to over 150 qualifying grant projects. Also, the ISGP history of projects can be found on the main page where the RFA is found. The link is at the bottom of this slide, but it does give you a good sort of point of context for other projects we funded in the past. Next, please. You can just tap through all four, Emma. So yeah, just to outline the major the four categories or bid opportunities that we have within this round 4 of the ISGP. The first is aquatic invasive species spread prevention or boat decontamination. The second is terrestrial and aquatic invasive species rapid response and control. The third is terrestrial and aquatic invasive species research. And the fourth is restoration and resiliency of sites impacted by invasive species. The concept of this sequence effectively is to provide opportunities for spread prevention, survey, early detection, control, and ultimately restoration. Basically a linear process of opportunity for projects related to invasives. Next, please. So some of the basic information that you should be aware of related to the ISGP, the most important of which is that all applications or bids are due on December 17th at 3 p.m. That is a hard cutoff date, and those applications must be made within SFS grants management. In total, there's approximately $4 million across the 4 categories. The funding range to grant recipients is $11,000 at a minimum, and the maximum is $250,000. It does depend on the grant opportunity. Please look at the RFA for specific details. There is a 25% match required. In-kind match is eligible, so not simply dollars, but also service time and contributions are eligible. There are 2 bids allowed per organization, and they cannot be within the same category or for the same project or location. And lastly, there's a 3-year contract term for the grants, and costs outside of that 3-year term are ineligible. Next, please. So eligible applicants include local government entities, academic institutions, and not-for-profit corporations. New York State government, I'll note, are ineligible applicants. Also a key point, if you have a multi-partner or intermunicipal project, we require letters that document the commitment and collaboration between the lead applicant and any additional contributing partners. Next. So some of the core requirements for eligibility, the project must implement one of the 4 specified project types that I just described. The projects must be located entirely within the geographic boundaries of New York State. That information should also be reinforced with maps and that document that those locations. And that information should be uploaded within SFS Grants Management. Also, another key point as relevant is that all projects should utilize IMAP invasives for survey, detection, control, and post-project monitoring data. Yeah, if we could also please throw that link in, it's not a live link right there, into the chat, Andrea. Next. So some bidder requirements. The bidder must be eligible. So I mentioned a moment ago the eligible bidder categories, but of note, not-for-profit organizations have to be pre-qualified within SFS Grants Management, and you have to be pre-qualified by the due date. So if you are a not-for-profit, please ensure that you are pre-qualified before you submit your application. Bidders conducting on-the-ground work must provide proof of land ownership or a formal written agreement to utilize or access the property that the project occupies. And also another key point is that the bidder must ensure your application is completed under the corresponding grant management bid category. So effectively make sure that your project fits within and that you complete your application within the specific category that you are applying for. Meaning if you applied for a control project within the AIS spread prevention, that would be a disqualifying entry. And lastly, as part of the bid package, you should upload a project timeline within the SFS Grants Management portal, and that should include a full 3-year term for your project. Next. Yeah, so now transitioning into specific discussions about the individual categories, and I'm going to pass off to Scott Jameson to discuss category 1.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. Appreciate that. My name is Scott Jameson. I work for Division of Lands and Forests in the Aquatic Invasive Species section. I am the coordinator for the Watercraft Inspection Steward Program. So I'm going to be talking about Category 1, aquatic invasive species spread prevention and boat decontamination. Can you go to the next slide? So I would like to talk about categories here so they can be grouped up into um, the services for boat steward program. So this would be at a public boat launch for education outreach and voluntary inspection of boaters that complies with Part 576 standards for clean, drain, dry. Or you could also do a boat decontamination station, and this includes the purchase of the decontamination equipment. This could augment an existing boat program, um, or it also could be a new program. So you could loop it into an existing boat steward program, or you could start a new program, or you can go more robust and do a boat steward program and a boat decontamination program. The boat decontamination actually does not have to be at a boat ramp if it is in a major travel corridor with small-bodied invasive species like zebra mussels or spiny water flea. It could be on a major road travel corridor. Um, and then if we're moving down for the priorities given, there's in the RFB, if you looked on page 25, there's 10 or 12 that are explained, but I'll go through 5 here. The place of steward and services that are at launches with prohibited AIS species. In the RFB, there are links that will go over the specific waters of bodies and what is in those waters of bodies. Um, Other thing is to deploy stewards at water bodies that do not have current coverage. Through the New York State Interactive Mapper, you can see that, and the link is also in the RFB. Though priorities will be given to publicly accessible bodies of water, so the public that have access to through the boat launch to access that body of water. Locations on major travel corridors or boat launches in the vicinity of waters with small bodied AIs. The delivery of boat stewards and decontamination programs through the cooperative partnership by one or more municipalities, NGOs, or academic institutions. I would like to talk just a few seconds about boat decontamination. We're looking for equipment that runs 140 degrees. There are 3 different options, and if there are people, bidders that would like more information about this, they can reach out to me. Next slide. So the program really is the front line of defense. We have the boat stewards that are engaging with the public, and we're trying to stop the transfer of aquatic invasive species through boat trailers in between bodies of water and watercraft. The prevention and introduction of AIS through voluntary boat inspections. We are there to really educate the public and make sure they're aware of AIS and what the impacts can be. And we're really trying to change their user behavior and, instill a sense of behavior change for the boating public. We also, a part of the program, DEC will be handing out education and outreach materials that will be provided to the bidders with the steward programs. And then we provide, if you're in the Adirondack Park, certification cards. And then we also ask to collect WISP data. This data will be collected in a WISPA survey 1, 2, 3 form, and it goes through the different parameters and questions to really instill how the program is working, and the tablets will be funded eligible through this program. I just want to hit to be really robust in your description in the grant. When you're going through your scope of work, make sure you fill out all the locations in detail and explain the program in detail. Right now, I am going to pass it off, next slide, to Naya Cross, and she's going to be talking about terrestrial and aquatic invasive species, rapid response and control.
Thanks, Scott. Good morning. As Scott mentioned, my name is Naya Kraus. I'm a terrestrial invasive plant coordinator with the New York State DEC Division of Lands and Forests. I'm going to be talking about the second category in the grant, the terrestrial and invasive species rapid response and control. Next slide. So as the title indicates, this is the general grant category used to manage invasive species. It's going to support projects that directly survey, control, manage, and respond to invasive species introductions and infestations. So all objectives should include survey and monitoring components. This category can be used in terrestrial and/or aquatic habitats. The focus is intended for priority invasive species, which can be plants, insects, and/or plant diseases. And the various control methods can be used: manual, mechanical, chemical, biocontrol. You can use one kind or multiple kinds, and the projects can focus either on a single species or on multiple species. Next slide. So each project is evaluated and scored against the same set of criteria. Specific scoring details and points for each criterion can be found in the scoring section of the RFA. And I want to encourage you that you should definitely look over the scoring section before designing your grant application. And checking your project against the scoring criteria will also help you determine if your application will be competitive for this grant category, because we get a lot of applicants for this category. So I'm going to now go over the main criteria each project being evaluated on. The more the project meets these criteria, the higher it will score. Again, remember the specific criteria details and points can be found in the RFA scoring sections. So I'm going to start with the invasive species and infestation. So to determine how high a priority the invasive species your project is focusing on, you should look at Appendix A, the New York Invasive Species Tiers List. This will help you find out how common your species or these species are within your regional area. So you're going to look to see what tier it's located in for your PRISM region. Less common species in a region will score higher. Other criteria that will score higher are nascent or more recent infestations, smaller areas of infestation, and infestations present in areas accessible to the public. When choosing your control methods, you're going to want to make sure that they're appropriate for the phenology, timing, and biology of your target invasive species, that they're tested, widely used, and likely to succeed. For instance, if you were going to do a control project that's controlling a plant that spreads by seed, you need to make sure that your control methods occur before seed drop. That's a very simple example. When planning your overall project, make sure to include public education and outreach, that you have survey and monitoring components within each objective, and that you're considering your long-term success and incorporating post-treatment monitoring and/or restoration, resiliency, and prevention components that will go out at least 5 years. And other considerations that will be evaluated are your partnerships, the knowledge, skills, and experience of your staff, and links to other existing plans. Next slide. So there are a variety of control methods that you can use to manage invasive species. You can use one kind of control or multiple kinds of control. I've listed a bunch of common methods here, but this is not an exhaustive list. So some common manual and mechanical removal methods are hand pulling, digging, cutting, girdling, tarping, burning. For aquatic systems, could be drawdown, dredging, mechanical harvesting, and diver-assisted suction harvesting. For chemical pesticide treatments using herbicides or insecticides, the methods can include foliar spray, cut stump, basal bark applications, wiper applications, hack and squirt. You can use different kinds of tools, hand sprayers, backpack sprayers, larger sprayers, spray by drone, whatever is most appropriate for your project. And then lastly, control methods can include biocontrol releases. In aquatic systems, this can be releasing sterile grass carp, to consume invasive submergent vegetation if the site allows, like it needs to have barriers to prevent those fish from escaping the target water body. And you do need a stocking permit for that release. Or you can release biocontrol insects that are approved to control invasive plants or invasive insects such as purple loosestrife, mile-a-minute, hemlock woolly adelgid, emerald ash borer, Japanese knotweed, swallowwort, knapweed. Next slide. So I just want to end with a couple of example photos from projects that were approved for the Invasive Species Grant in round 3, just to give you an idea of what some other people have been working on. So there's chemical treatment for beech leaf disease by contract staff. So I didn't mention that earlier, but your control methods can be done by, contracting out a project, doing it by your own staff, hosting a volunteer day, having interns, variety of people can actually do the work. Then in the middle, we have a photo of manual invasive plant control by volunteers and staff during a volunteer day. And below that, you can see later they had a volunteer day where they had native plant revegetation by volunteers and staff. And then over to the left, you can see before and after photos of a very successful water chestnut treatment. And then over to the right, you can see some examples of outreach, signage to raise awareness and encourage reports, doing aquatic invasive species training for summer interns. So these are just snippets of projects that are in progress now. And then next slide. So the next category, grant category on research, will be discussed by Dr. Stephen Pearson.
Good morning, everyone. Stephen Pearson here. I'm a research scientist with the DEC. Primarily, I focus on aquatic invasive species, but also look at abundance and distribution of many other species. Next slide, please. So the research category is focused on these general topics here. It can be pretty broadly implemented, but essentially, we want to support projects that provide a foundation or new approaches for invasive species management. Additionally, looking at the impacts of invasive species, whether they're on ecosystems or economic impacts, develop or test new management tools that could be used for invasive species management, as well as synthesizing and communicating those results across the system. These two photos here are just indicating types of research projects that have been done, looking at the ecosystem impacts of invasive species, as well as developing different kinds of models that could be used for their management. Next slide. Some potential topics that could be used for research, and this is not inclusive, include looking at life history of the prohibited or regulated invasive species. So those are those listed in Part 575. Additionally, can look at, again, those types of impacts to the ecology, human health, or the economic impacts of invasive species. There's the potential to work to develop novel control methodologies or different management activities for natural areas. And then looking at empirically based risks of introduction. And that figure in the bottom right there is just showing some of the boat steward data and how aquatic invasive species might be dispersed across the region. So again, this is not all-inclusive of your topics, but just ideas for researchers to potentially use. Next slide, please. We'll be introducing Jess Cancelleri for discussing Category 4.
Hi, everybody. I'm the Forest Health Coordinator in the Division of Lands and Forests, Bureau of Invasive Species and Ecosystem Health. And I'm going to talk about Category 4, restoration and resiliency of sites impacted by invasive species. which is a new category. It was created to address what happens after an invasive species has already caused significant ecological damage. It allows for on-the-ground management and restoration of sites that have been degraded by invasives, helping to recover native species, rebuild habitat structure, and increase long-term ecosystem resilience. It can also be a category that is a good follow-up to previous work you've potentially done under Category 2, invasive species control. And I think it's also a good tool for addressing pests or diseases that don't have effective treatment options, like beech leaf disease, where forest management or other mitigation strategies are the only tool that you have available. Next slide, please. So projects in Category 4 should aim to meet one or more of the following goals: native species recovery, reestablishing species lost or reduced by invasives, habitat restoration, rebuilding ecological function and structure at impacted sites, and ecosystem resiliency, improving an ecosystem's ability to withstand and recover from future disturbances. These goals really capture the intent of this category. It's about helping systems recover from past damage while building resilience to future invasions or other disturbances. Priority will be given to projects that clearly link management actions to these goals. For example, reforestation strategies to replace trees lost to forest pests and diseases, like emerald ash borer, preventative thinning or other silvicultural strategies to reduce stand level susceptibility to invasives like spongy moth or oak wilt or southern pine beetle, aquatic or riparian restoration, for example, planting native riparian or aquatic species or stabilizing eroded stream banks after invasive plant removal or overstory loss. And finally, habitat improvements, restoring mass-producing trees or shade-providing trees to support wildlife and watershed health. So in applying for Category 4, applicants must show that invasive species impacts have occurred at the site. For example, major overstory loss from emerald ash borer or an understory dominated by invasive shrubs like honeysuckle. I'm also a little biased right now on the forest health examples because that is my program. Again, these projects can occur in both aquatic or terrestrial habitats. Preventative management actions may be considered if there's clear evidence of an imminent risk of an invasive. So applicants should demonstrate in that case that the site has abundant host species that are vulnerable to that particular invasive and that it's in close proximity to the nearest known infestation. So even if the invasive hasn't reached the site yet, if it's clearly on the doorstep, projects may still be considered. So for example, if you're on Long Island in the middle of a southern pine beetle infestation and you do preventative thinning to make your stand less susceptible to SPB, that would qualify. But just doing like general stand thinning in a place just for forest health and resiliency without an imminent threat would not qualify. Applicants should also think about feasibility and long-term success. Having a long-term plan in place is really important. Having post-treatment monitoring in place to measure progress or success is really important. And having some adaptive management capacity to ensure restoration efforts persist despite roadblocks and other challenges. And of course, restoration can be a very long-term process. So this funding is more likely to support one or two specific stages of a restoration process. It might not support the whole thing. So it will be important to show what specific work this funding is covering, what stage of that process is covering, and how that contributes to your broader plan. Next slide, please. So some project examples that illustrate how this can look on the ground. Reforestation might involve replanting a diversity of native climate-adapted species in areas where there's been significant overstory loss or significant dieback from a forest pest or pathogen. Understory management, controlling invasive shrubs and installing deer exclosures to promote natural regeneration. And this work often goes hand in hand with reforestation efforts because in areas with significant overstory mortality, you have to reclaim the site from invasive shrubs prior to planting or other assisted regen efforts. Another is preventative thinning or other silvicultural strategies like For example, using variable density thinning and high density oak stands to improve tree vigor and reduce susceptibility to things like spongy moth or oak wilt. Now, again, we would be looking at projects, maybe like in the lower Hudson Valley where spongy moth has been raging the last few years, where there's been a lot of oak mortality, or out in Region 8 where we have DEC Region 8, like Canandaigua, Finger Lakes area, where we have consistent oak wilt infestations. So again, that's getting more into the preventative work, but it has to be tied to an imminent threat of invasives. And I mentioned this earlier, thinning overstocked pine stands, potentially in a place like Suffolk County where there's high southern pine beetle pressure. Next slide, please. Aquatic or riparian restoration, propagating or planting native aquatic plants like Valsinaria, or stabilizing eroded stream banks with live staking using native willow or dogwood, and reestablishing aquatic vegetation following something like knotweed control. And then habitat improvements, reestablishing mass-producing species, especially in areas where beech leaf disease has been impactful and has removed those mass trees, or potentially restoring riparian shade in areas of high hemlock mortality, or creating young forest conditions for associated wildlife species. And I think that's all. So in summary, Category 4 supports both recovery and preparedness and helps us restore ecosystems already changed by invasives while building resilience against future stressors. And with that, I'll pass it back over to Josh Teal to talk a little bit more about scoring and grant timelines.
Great, thanks everyone. So yes, now we're going to discuss some of the bounds related to scoring. So that everyone knows, all accepted applications will be scored and reviewed by a team at DEC. There is a core pass-fail criteria that's described in the RFA. Please make sure that you fit within the pass category for each of those. That's on page 24 of the RFA. The specific project scoring questions are unique to each category. I strongly recommend potential applicants look at the scoring criteria to see how their project may fit and be best ranked in those scoring rubrics. There is a cost effectiveness section that is applied to all projects, all 4 categories. And then there's also a 5-point section for disadvantaged communities, and I'll touch on that in a second. Also note that DEC reserves the right not to award funding if the technical score is below 60 out of 100. So 60 out of the above 100 points shown in this slide. Next slide. To help potential applicants find their way to describing their DAC or disadvantaged community qualifications, you can utilize the link on this slide, and you can enter in a zip code and find the location of your project, the map of which you can screenshot or make a copy of and transmit in the SFS grants portal. Next slide. So I want everyone to be aware of the timeline for the ISGP. We're in the open application period right now, and the first date of note is December 15th. That's when all formal questions for the RFA must be submitted. Just want to reiterate and make sure we put this in the chat that the email inbox is dlfgrants@dec.ny.gov. All questions will be responded to by December 16th. But I as well recommend that you don't wait until December 15th. Please submit your questions as early as possible. And the big red letter date that everyone, again, should be fully aware of is that the is December 17th at 3 p.m. That is the deadline for all applications to have been received and uploaded into SFS Grants Management Portal. Following receipt of applications, DEC will conduct a review of all projects. It is likely that we will have a final list of awardees by early 2026. Grant recipients will receive email and mailed physical letters notifying them of their award. Please note that if you receive an award, and applicants agree to abide by all master contract obligations for a grant receipt. Also note that if your project was not awarded, you will also be sent a letter notifying you of the declination. And then it is our goal for all projects that were awarded to have to be in contract and have contract start dates of April 15th, 2026. Hopefully that will get people on the ground and able to conduct their projects beginning in the field season of next year. Again, there's a 3-year term for the grants. You don't have to work a full 3-year term, so if you had a shorter project, that's eligible as well. And I'll mention it, and I hope you remember it in 3 years, but if you do receive an award, a final report is a requirement of your contract and must be submitted to the DEC prior to final release of any remaining balance. And that report should describe a full description of your project, including partnerships, E&O efforts, methodology, obviously the work completed, quantify your project optimally through the use of IMAP invasives, and then provide recommendations and summaries of your success. Next slide. Yes, and so we've come to the end of the programmatic description. This slide again describes the persons that have been presenting today, but also key point is the email for any questions that we don't cover in the Q&A period is dlfgrants@dec.ny.gov. But before we pass off to Brad McMillian, we're going to have a roughly 15-minute period for question and answer. Next slide. Yeah, so we can address any outstanding questions in the chat, programmatic application questions as are appropriate. And I'll keep in mind that if there are questions that are that require any further review or there's some uncertainty, we will respond as part of the Q&A on the website, and so there will be a formal response regardless. All right.
Thanks, Josh. So Michelle, our grants administrator, has been answering some of the questions in the chat. So some of the non-programmatic questions. So if you put a question there and we don't address it now, see if Michelle has answered it, or otherwise, as Josh said, we may be able to answer that later. So first question for Josh. Is outreach and education a separate track, or can outreach and education be part of multiple, part of the project categories?
So just for clarification, in round 3 of the ISGP 2 years ago, trying not to confuse folks, we did have a unique category for education and outreach. We do not have that category in round 4, this opportunity. So by itself, E&O is not a qualifying project category. However, there is a strong preference and a number of the categories, opportunities and scoring benefit for projects that do involve education and outreach. So even if you're doing a control project, there's still benefit to doing E&O as part of your project.
There are a couple questions about projects that could fall under multiple categories. Should people submit as the same project under multiple categories? Can one project be considered for multiple categories? What should people do in that scenario?
I have seen and do understand that there are projects that sometimes cover multiple phases of work. So there could be a control and then a restoration component to a project. Our recommendation is that you submit individual applications that best fit the body of work that you're proposing. It's difficult to parse those out, and that could be a disqualifying aspect. So the most reliable way of dealing with mixed project types is to separate them within the specific category that they most naturally fit.
If projects include herbicide spraying or are maybe in a habitat like a wetland that might require a permit, do those permits have to be acquired before the application is submitted?
No.
Great. Is it acceptable to use other graphics programs other than IMAP to make a map for these grants?
It depends a little bit on that. I would need a little more information on that question. In general, if you are conducting any survey, reporting your results of any type, you should use IMAP as the default data collection and mapping tool. I will offer that if there are unique needs for which we can tailor suit IMAP functionalities, that we have opportunities to do that as well. So applicants are encouraged to work with IMAP team to find solutions to their mapping needs.
I'm not sure if Michelle answered this one, but just in case she didn't, if an organization were to apply for 2 projects, do they have to be on separate legal land parcels, or can they be at different locations within a parcel?
They can be at different locations on the same parcel or separate parcels, as long as the activity itself is distinct from the second proposed project.
Is Bermuda grass invasive?
I don't know enough about that species to comment on it at the moment. There are definitions for invasive species that qualify under the ISGP. It fits the legal definition for invasives as well as Part 575 species. So if it fits under the category of the ECL definition for invasives, there's a link in the RFA, then it could potentially be eligible.
Great. Can Atlantis, which is a tier 4 in their region, removal be considered as a tier 1 management activity due to its role as a host for SLF, which is a tier 1 in their region, even if SLF has not yet been identified?
I don't have a clear answer. My immediate reaction would be likely it would qualify simply as a tier 4.
Is
response if we put it in online.
What was the last thing that you said, Josh?
If we just put it into a formal question response, we can do that.
Okay. So stay tuned for the answer to that one. Is purchasing a large piece of equipment like a dredging machine an eligible expense?
Potentially, equipment are eligible expenses. the general bounds for equipment is that they're used exclusively for the intent for which they were purchased. Also, grant contractual terms obligate that equipment which is purchased, and then after which the contract expires, if the equipment is no longer utilized for the intended purpose, it is at the department's discretion to assume possession of that equipment. So basically, the equipment should be used exclusively for the work it was proposed during the project and optimally afterwards as well.
Can research, I'm assuming having to do with projects in New York, be conducted at a university outside of New York State?
If we could get a refined framing of that question, we can respond afterwards.
Okay. Are DEC herbicide permits or other permitting required for smaller scale volunteer projects controlling terrestrial invasive species like frag if wetlands are near?
Potentially, I can't give a definitive answer now, and I strongly recommend reviewing permitting requirements and jurisdictional requirements for wetlands or any natural resource jurisdictions for any projects. That's sort of very site specific.
Okay. Can invasive management work that's necessary to conduct restoration planting be included in the budget or as a match for the restoration category?
Can you repeat that again?
Can invasive management work that is necessary to conduct restoration planting, so the invasive work that has to happen before the planting, is that included in the budget or as a match for the restoration category?
Oh, within the restoration category?
Yeah.
That would depend, again, referring back to the prior question and answer about separate projects. If you can distinguish between the two activities in a clear enough fashion and the volume of work between the two is distinct enough, then it's better to have two applications, one within the category 2 and one within category 4. There are sometimes smaller volumes of work that may preclude or lead to restoration work, and that could potentially be eligible within a restoration category. It's difficult to say as a generality. So the standard response would be separate the applications if possible.
Would bioswales or rain gardens be considered for this grant?
By themselves as treatments for building restoration or resiliency, they're acceptable practices, but they would have to be tied to treatments following the removal or in response to invasive impacts or infestation at the site that they're located. So it has to be tied again to the impacts of invasives that would lead you to want to use those treatments.
Okay, do species need to be on the invasive species tier list to be considered for restoration if negative impacts to native species have been observed?
They don't have to be on the tier list. It's preferable that they would be, and the tier list hosted by IMAP is pretty extensive. So hopefully the species in question would be there, but the definition for invasives, and it's linked within the RFA, is broader than simply a tier list, or it's not restricted to a tier list. So if it fits within the category of an invasive as defined by the environmental conservation law, then it could be eligible.
Okay, applications for the rapid response and control category must respond to the questions related to the following: initial discovery size, area, percent of area infested, percent of area tested. Can you apply for survey and control funding if you don't yet know the size of the infestation or percent of the area infested because you want to use part of the grant work for survey?
Yes, we have commonly seen projects where survey leads to control. I would be advise applicants to be very careful to ensure that they still have as realistic an expectation of potential extent and to still complete all questions related to those observations. So you still have to fill out and answer the questions within the category. So please do your best to answer all questions.
Can categories 2 or 4 be used to treat a significant infestation of water chestnut in multiple public waterways?
Yes, 2 could certainly be used for water chestnut control.
This one might be for Michelle if she hasn't gotten to it. Is fundraising acceptable during the grant review process?
I'm not sure what fundraising relates to, related to the grant. If they're trying to,
So it wouldn't be
yeah,
eligible for funding.
we would need more information to give you an accurate answer.
Sorry, I'm just reading the new questions that have come through. We will have another question and answer period at the end. And of course, we can continue to answer questions until December 15th. I think we've addressed some of these. Do we need to know our specific subcontractors prior to the application and our applicants subject to the NYS 3 bid rules?
No, you don't need to know the subcontractors immediately. I missed some of that question, but if there are partners that are part of the project, they do need to be identified in advance.
Are tribal entities eligible for funding?
Yes.
Can the value of volunteer time be used towards match?
Yes.
Michelle from the side, yes.
Yes. Okay. Could training of our nonprofit employees to receive their pesticide spraying certification and then doing said spraying as part of the program plan be acceptable use of grant funds?
We can respond to that afterwards.
Okay. If a project's on DEC or state parks land, would a copy of the submitted permit application suffice for landowner approvals? Because it's unlikely it will be approved by the grant submission date.
Correct. Yes, that's acceptable for
now. Is a license needed to release biocontrol insects?
A license is not, so long as the biocontrol insects have previously been certified for release by USDA. So we're just about at 11. If we have, I wasn't keeping track of how long we've been answering questions, but
It's been about 15 minutes. So I think we can move on to the next section, and then you can keep putting your questions in the chat, and we will have an additional 15 minutes at the end. So thank you.
all right. So I'll give it back to you, Emma and Brad, to continue discussions related to SFS grants management. And so.
Thanks, Josh. I think Brad is going to share his screen if I'm remembering correctly.
That is correct. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. That was very informative information shared there by the DEC staff. So I'm sure everyone appreciated that. And I hope to continue that through the next portion of the webinar. I will say straight up, well, let me introduce myself. That would be first. My name is Brad McMillan. It's been mentioned several times. I work for the Office of Information Technology Services. In the grants management unit, we provide technical support and training for the grants management functionality within the SFS system. So over the next, hopefully 45 minutes, I'll try to stick to the timeline here. We're going to discuss a few things. I'm going to touch on registration and pre-qualification very briefly for those who need help with that. And then we'll jump into a demo in the SFS testing environment. A spoiler alert here, if you're experienced with SFS, maybe you've already submitted multiple applications without any issues, I'm most likely not going to show you anything you haven't encountered before. So feel free to jump off if you fall into that category. If you've experienced troubles, if this is new to you, there will be information here that will help you through the process. So with that being said, if you are an organization that has no established account in SFS, you don't have a primary contact, your organization has never been registered, you'll want to go to our grants management website here. And that's grantsmanagement.ny.gov. This is where you're going to find all the information you need to get started. And you're going to do that by going to this Get Started tab right at the top of the screen. And if we just scroll down to Register Your Organization, I'm not going to go through the whole screen here, but click the link, and there's these little train stops to the left. You can do the overview, how to register. Maybe you just want to go get the forms. You click the link, it's going to take you right to it. So again, if you're not established in SFS, you want to start that immediately. It will take multiple days to get that going. We'll request a vendor ID for you and get you established in SFS. But please start early, and you'll hear me mention that multiple times over the next 45 minutes. It is the #1 cause of failure, lack of success with the grant application process, is people don't start early enough. So there's no reason to hesitate and not get started today. If you are not-for-profit, I know this was mentioned earlier too, and you need to get pre-qualified, you need to check your pre-qualification. Again, under this Get Started tab, we have Get Pre-Qualified. You can scroll down just like we saw in the last section. Multiple sources here on the requirements, required documents, a manual, tell you what you need. It's all here right on the grants management website. Scroll in there. Okay. So again, if you're working on your pre-qualification, you don't have an account set up in SFS, grants management website, it's going to get you started. If you have any questions about either one of those things, let me go back to our home screen. I know this was on the last slide there, I believe, as we ended the first section. Our contact information by phone, by email, submit your question. Those questions will get routed to our team, to the grants management unit, and we'll help you. But again, start early, give us time. We have pretty much 100% success rate with helping people if we have enough time. Again, the #1 reason for failure to get these applications in on time is not starting early enough. So what do we do to get started? If it was me and I do not have that RFP document that was mentioned throughout the first hour, I would want to go get that right away. And the good news is you don't need an SFS account to get it. Even if you're trying to get registered, you can start that process and still take a look at this RFP document. So now we're going to transition to our SFS website, sfs.ny.gov. This is where your application is going to be submitted, where your pre-qualification process will be completed, and where your contract will be, hopefully, if you get awarded. So on this home page here, if you're looking for the RFP document, you don't even have to log in, but you will click this vendors tile here, and we'll talk about tiles throughout the process. We'll click vendors, and then we're going to go over to increase that, search for grant opportunities. And again, if you notice, I didn't log in, don't need to log in to do this, but I can still grab this document, which is key to the whole process here. And it will provide you with all the information you need, again, to be successful with this grant application. And as you see here, without even entering anything in these search fields, notice I left them all blank. Just start scrolling down, and right away, we see these DEC grants that we're looking for. So we're going to click the active link here in the middle, which is the name of the grant opportunity. And you're presented with multiple information sections here. Overview of the grant, details, application due date, very important. Questions due date. And I know Josh, I think, just mentioned this, and this is one thing we see a lot at the help desk. So I want to encourage you to, again, start early, get your RFP document, initiate the application, which we're going to show you how to do that. Because what often happens is people will wait until this question and answer period is over. Then they initiate the grant application, they're reading the RFP, and then you may have these programmatic questions that we can't answer at our help desk. We can help you with technical support. We cannot answer these questions about the programs. So people find the information, maybe it's December the 17th, and they have a question about the program. We'll get, well, we reached out to DC and the question and answers period is over. We can't answer those questions as a technical support help desk. So please start early, read the information, and you're going to get your questions going. The other reason I like to show this page is when the question and answers are posted, you're going to go here to find them. You see the link here, click here. It's blank at the moment, so I'm not going to even open it, but this is where you're going to find that document. I recommend checking weekly if it was me, because someone may submit a question that you haven't thought of that may be helpful to you. All those questions and answers will be provided here in this document. So check weekly, check for the document. It could give you some helpful information, because generally if one person has a question, it applies to multiple organizations. So check this page. So you're going to find your RFP document here by clicking this View Grant Opportunity. Just for an example, we'll click it. There we go. It's the same document as you see for all 4 programs. But again, very important. Please go grab this today if you haven't already. Okay, so we found our RFP document. We talked about registration, pre-qualification. Now let's log into our SFS system. Let's start with our demo here. So after you have access to the system, you're going to log in. As you see here on my home screen, I'm presented with multiple tiles, as they refer to in SFS. And the first one I want to point you to is this SFS Coach. They made a few updates to this in the last 6 months, and it's wonderful. One of the biggest complaints we would get about SFS Coach is there is so much training material in here, sometimes it's hard to find what you're looking for. So what SFS did recently is they created this quick start center over here. So if I go right down here to Manage New York State Grants, and this is only accessible after you log in, so you have your account set up, you're logged in, and we're given these topics. Pre-qualification, you're not for profit, you're working on that, you click the link, it's going to give you some information on how to complete that. For us today, respond to grant opportunities. We just click that link, everything's organized into one page here. We have a handbook, we have reference guides. My favorite is the videos. I enjoy those. I think that's the most helpful for me to actually see the process on the screen. We do have the grantee manual here, which I want to point that out for a couple reasons. One, we refer people to it often through the help desk. And I'm going to show you this. Once they open the document and they see this, 218 pages, we get the response often, I don't have time to read 218 pages. Great answer is we don't expect you to read 218 pages. If you just scroll down a little bit here into our table of contents, similar to what we saw there in our Quick Start Center, we have a section here responding to bid events. I don't have to read anything before that or after it. I can simply click the link, and here's the whole section. It's going to walk you through every step I'm going to show you today. But one thing I want to point out, because you do need certain roles to initiate and submit your grant application, and it's listed here right at the top of the section. You need your event initiator role and the submitter role. Now it may be set up, you may think, well, why would you need both, or why is there even an option for two? Some organizations prefer to maybe set up their grant writer, for example, to initiate the grant application, complete it, and then maybe they want someone a little higher up to review it before submitting. That's the reason. Now, if you're the person that's going to initiate, complete, and submit your grant, you need to request from your grant delegated administrator who sets up the accounts in SFS. They can create that for you. You'll need both. And it's very important that if you're not the person that's going to submit and you do not have the submit role, start working on that today. Who's going to submit? Who's got the role? Because again, goes back to our theme of starting early. We see it, and we just recently saw this, I think, last week with the DEC grant. Someone completed the whole grant. There's an hour to go. They wanted to submit. They did not have the submit role. As usual, they assume it was the system was preventing them, and the system was had an error, whatever, technical. It was not. It was a user issue. They did not have the right role. Fortunately for them, we were able to help them. We got them on the phone and got the grant application submitted. But please be aware, you need the initiator role to initiate and the submitter role to submit. Okay, so let's go back to, I'm going to get rid of this one. Okay, so here we're back on our home page. And again, there's a video there. It's going to walk you through these steps. That grant manual is going to walk you through all the steps. But your first step after you log in is you're going to look for this Grants Management State tile. If you log in and you don't see this, that immediately tells you don't have the correct roles to do this. So that's your first key. You don't see that tile, reach out to your delegated administrator. We're going to click our tile here, and we're going to have a few more options here. The one we're looking for here is our bid event search. We're looking for that bid event, invasive species. Okay. Now, just like we saw on the last screen, you see, or the original search screen before we logged in, not the last screen. If we scroll down, we see a lot of options here. As you see, a lot of these are grayed out because they're not active anymore. The deadline is passed. So if you are presented with a long list, you want to narrow it down. I think the best two things you could use here would be available. What's available currently? We don't need to see anything that's not available. And, you know, because we know these are with DEC, you could type DEC in there and then the search button. What we see oftentimes with these search screens, the more information you put in, the more likely you are to get something wrong. So less is more here. Stick to DC available. If you put the wrong event ID in here, it's not going to find anything for you. We get that a lot. So start with nothing, add just a little bit, and you're going to find what you need here. As we scroll down, oh, I'm sorry. I did have to create this under Ag and Market, so it's not going to show up for me unless I do that. And that's one thing I should point out right away. This is a demo. The dates, the numbers, the questions, responses may not be what you see in the real system. So just be aware, this is just an example. It may not be exactly what you see. So now that we've located our grant opportunity in the search fields, I want to show you another mistake people, not necessarily mistake, get going in the wrong direction. So if we click the name of the grant here, we see the same information that we saw prior to logging in, right? We see the question and answers link, the information, our deadline, but there is no place to start our application, to bid on the event. If we return to our search, and if we click our bid event ID, this is key. In the search, click the bid event ID. And here we go. Now we're on the page we need to bid on the event. There is some basic information here. Please ignore this for now because we're going to discuss that in the future. We have some contact information, again, our start and end dates, the name of our grant. Now you'll see right here our bid on event, and that's what we're going to do to initiate our application. Okay, so now we are in our grant application, and I would recommend going back to the beginning, start early, get your RFP document, initiate this application, take a look at it. That's where your questions are going to come from. Reading that document, looking at the application. Don't wait until after the questions and answer period is over to do this, and then you have questions that can't be answered. So as we scroll down here, we're going to see step 1, some general information, and then we're going to get down into our questions. This is a very short sample. What I did is I created a question type for each one you're going to encounter in the application. That's not the full application. Then we get down to step 2, enter our responses, and then we get into our budget and work plan, which would be down here at the bottom. And then our events, comments, and attachments. So this is key here, and it is one thing that we see every day at the help desk. If there's a grant opportunity open, someone will come to their grant application. They're going to click here. They're going to enter in some information. All right, that's all I want to do today. I'm just going to go down here. I'll save for later. My bid's not complete. Sure, I knew that. Name is required. All right, I'll come back and do that later. You get these error messages up here for what you have not completed, and you walk away from the computer. You come back tomorrow, all your information is gone. This is key. The application will not be saved until you complete the site project address and this bidder contact information. If I logged out now and walked away, when I come back, any information I've entered will not be here. So the first step to initiate and save your application is we're going to enter in our site project address. And I think this is probably more commonly missed than the bidder contact information, but this is a clickable link. And you're going to enter in your project site address. Okay, and that's all we need to do. But I do want to show this example because it was, again, just something we've seen at the help desk, and it caused a lot of confusion for one user. And usually if it's for one user, it happens to multiple. But if you see these plus and minus buttons over here, these are only to be used if you want to add additional addresses. If I click here, it gives me 2. Once I click that button, I have to complete both of these. So we just had a user, they were entering in one, clicking the plus button, trying to save it, and not completing this one. In most cases, you're not going to need more than one project site address, but if you do, and you click the plus button, you will need to complete both, because the system recognizes this as an incomplete entry. So let's remove that one. We're going to stick to just the one address, and then we'll click the OK button. Now, as we just stated, the next step would be to enter in your contact information. Now, this will be used, too many numbers. And this will be on a report that DEC can run if they need to reach out to everyone that's applying for this grant opportunity. So put a real name there. We do see sometimes it'll just be someone's title with an email address, but put your real name in there because DEC may need to reach out. And we're going to go down now and we're going to save for later because we've entered in those 2 important fields, the project site address, and the contact information. See, I get the green light there. It's saving the page now. If we scroll to the top, we're still going to see these error messages, which is fine. We're going to come back and finish that. So at this point, just because it's another question that we get often, I've saved my application. Let's pretend I logged out. I'm going to go back to my home screen. Get rid of that. There we go. And I've logged out. I've come back the next day and I want to find my grant application. We're actually going to repeat the exact same steps to initiate it. So we're going to go to our grants management state tile again. And our bid event search again, repeating the same steps. And again, just to reduce our results here. Do available. Search. Okay, here's my grant, aquatic invasive species spread prevention or boat decontamination. You see it ran out of space there on the title. But again, we don't want to click the name to initiate or find our last or in process application. We're going to click the bid event ID all the way to the left. Now, as we noticed earlier, and I said ignore it, but now we don't want to ignore it. We scroll down just a little bit and we see my bids. I see 2 in process. Click this link. It's going to show me a little grid here of the 2 applications I have in process. Now, if you'll notice both of these, the bid status saved. That tells me I've gone in, I've saved my application, and it's still in process. And we'll demonstrate this at the end, but just in case I forget, after this has been submitted, you've completed your application, hit that submit button, everything's cleared. This would change to posted. So if you're like, I just want to make sure that I submitted my grant application, repeat those steps, come down to your little grid here. If the bid status is posted, you're all set. You can also view and edit if it's in process. So let's look at, this is the one that we just started here. So we're going to view and edit. So we saved it yesterday. We're coming back. We've located it. We're going to continue our work. View and edit. And here we go. We're right back where we left off with our saved information, our site project address and name. Again, I can't stress enough, if these 2 things aren't entered, nothing is going to save. That's what establishes your application. Again, I pointed out previously, but after I did that, I saved my application. Would scroll to the very bottom of the screen and open this events, comments, and attachments. Now, if you've already read your RFP document, you know what's going to be here. But if not, you can open the page. You'll see several more than this. Again, I only uploaded one example. This is the EO16 PDF. So this is going to be uploaded to a question, a bid factor. You'll hear 2 of the questions referred to as bid factors in the manuals and some of the videos. But to access this document, go over here, click the view button. It's going to open it up for you. Save it to your computer. There are 3, 4, maybe 5 for these grant opportunities. Just go and download them all and save them to your computer. Most of them, I think there may be one that's a work plan template, but most of them will be required to be uploaded to a question. Please don't upload them on this page. On the system, as you see here, I can upload a document, I could save it, I could delete it. No one's going to see it if you upload it on this page. All the questions that require an attachment will be in the other section that we'll look at shortly. So here's where you're going to grab your attachments. Again, click the view button. It's going to open up for you. You can save that right on your computer. So we have saved our bid event. We've gone down here and we've grabbed all the attachments that we need. We've read our RFP document. Let's get started on completing the rest of our application here. As you see here, again, I only have 4 questions. This is an example of each type of question you're going to encounter in your grant application. The first one here, pretty simple, yes or no. This is just giving you some information actually about uploading documents. They should be in PDF format unless the question instructs you otherwise. I do believe in this grant, they're all expected to be PDFs. Please make them non-fillable, non-secured. flat PDFs. That's what's accepted in SFS. So simple here. Yes, no, hit the drop down. Yes, understand that all uploads must be in the PDF format. We scroll down here to our next one. Pretty self-explanatory. This requires a narrative response. So this is your project summary question. These narrative response boxes, just to be clear, are limited to 2,000 characters, and that's standard across the entire grant application. It can't be changed, it can't be reduced or increased. So keep that in mind as you're filling out some of these narrative responses. Maybe you want to develop it in a Word document offline to get your character limit down to where it should be, and then copy and paste into the system. That's perfectly fine, but this is limited to 2,000 characters. And one thing I want to mention about that, because that's another thing we see often, you know, grantees will maybe read the RFP document, get all the questions, we'll have everything ready to go. It's all in a Word document. It's, you know, 2 hours before the deadline, and now I'm running into problems because I don't have the correct role, or maybe I can't get logged in, whatever the reason may be. It's perfectly fine to develop this offline and copy and paste it, but don't let that be a crutch for me to say, oh, I've got it all done. I can wait till the day of the deadline and go in an hour or two before and just put it all in here. That may not work out. So start early, even if you're going to do it offline, and then enter it into the system early, because we can't help you if you encounter problems. So there's our project summary. Now here I did 2 examples of this because sometimes this creates the most problems for people. This question is asking for an upload, and we see here the enter file attachment response. This is proof of land ownership. I did just copy and paste this from the actual bid event. So let's take a look at how do we upload a document. Pretty simple. You know, if you've encountered grants management systems in the past or many other systems, the process is basically the same. We're presented here with a blank line with an upload option. I'm going to click the upload. We'll choose a file from our computer. Just do DL16, which isn't the correct document here. So again, be aware that this is an example. It's not exactly what you should see or do in the system. We're going to click the upload button. And here we have our document, which is for us, for example, the EL16. You can enter a brief description here. What document am I uploading? The other thing that I highly recommend is after you upload a document, click this view button to check it. Make sure it is the EL16 policy. Make sure it's not something else that is not going to get you credit for answering this question correctly. So please view the document. What do? I uploaded the wrong document. Maybe this is for another question. I can come over here, click the delete button. There we go. I can start all over. So we're going to upload a document. This is a required upload, so the system would prevent me from submitting this grant application if I did not do that. Okay. All right, and along those lines, we're going to skip question 12 here. We're going to pretend that we think we did complete that. So we've entered in our responses, our technical questions. And now we need to work on our budget and work plan, which, as you notice here, there's nothing that jumps out at you on the screen that says, oh, here's your budget, here's your work plan. But down here at the bottom, left-hand corner, period details, this is where you're going to access that information, your work plan and your budget. See here, after we click that screen, we have 2 options here, our budget properties, our work plan properties, and we're going to take a look at both. Okay, so there's 2 sections really on this budget page, and the first one causes a bit of confusion. This first section, the first grid, is only for information. It's telling you what is the match requirement, how is the match going to be calculated, what categories are available for me to enter funding. And this is a good spot for me to mention these view all buttons. As you notice here, the default view, which is a little odd, the default view when I open this screen is to only show me half the categories. You may encounter this in other sections of SFS, so just something to be aware of. You have 2 options. We could do 6 of 10, but I like to view all. Now we scroll down, we see all 10 categories. And as we see in this example, they're all available in the grant. Again, this is just an example. And our match percentage is displayed here. We cannot enter in any budget information in this first grid. That's simply for information. Now we scroll down. Here's where we're going to do our work. But again, we see we've defaulted to 5 categories. If we click view all, we have all 10 now. So something to be aware of. And another thing, if you notice, it didn't quite cut off for me, but we get this a lot too. Well, I see 5 categories, but I don't see the view all button. Depending on your font size of your screen, if it's expanded a little bit, you may not initially see everything, all your options. But if you notice, even then it's barely hanging on the edge of the screen there, I have this additional scroll bar. So again, pay attention to your view all options and these left and right scroll bars. That's a little different than what we've been used to in the past, and you don't see it in a lot of places, but do pay attention to these additional scroll bars if you're not seeing what you expect to see on the screen. So we have everything open here. Let's pick a category. We'll pick a nice easy one for me to do the math. We're going to click this link all the way to the right. So again, that's another reason it's important. We scroll back left. Now they're still there, but if our font size was a little bigger, maybe we're getting cut off here at the total. We would need to scroll over and click our category details link to actually enter in our budget information. So I'm going to go kind of quick here. I do want to discuss match, obviously. You are going to need to enter in your matching funds, but as we saw there in that first section, the match requirement is across the whole budget. So you don't necessarily have to match 25% in each line or each category, but you do need to match 25% across the entire budget. So let's make this a nice small number. For match funds, let's do, we'll do 250. We'll just stick to the 25% here. And as we scroll over in this category, that's the only fields available. But again, let me save this one because I want to show you actually the salary one. Oh, budget narrative. Don't forget to enter in your budget narrative. It is one budget narrative across the whole grant or the whole budget, but please do provide the narrative information here in this field. Let's look at salary. I think this is a good example of having to scroll a little farther right. So if we do, let's do another 1,000. We'll do our match funds. Again, I'm making it nice and easy. But you see, I'm still going to have to scroll to the right. So we can enter our position title, test, salary, work week hours, and the percent funded. Let's do 12. And again, don't pay attention to these numbers. This is just to provide an example of how to use the grants management functionality. Math may not even be right in some cases. But you see, as we've entered this, our information is saved here. So we've entered in $1,000 grant funds, $250 match funds. So our category equals $1,250. If for some reason, and you may, very possibly may, need to maybe enter in another line within the same budget category, again, it's key to scroll to the right here. We click our plus button. It creates the second line. So maybe there's another position, another category, another line that you need to enter within this budget category. Again, we have our narrative here at the bottom. Please don't forget that. Okay, so I'm going to delete this one because we don't really need it for our purposes. And I am trying to be cognizant of the time left here. Budget. And you will want to remember, and I'm sure at this point in the process, you should have a pretty good grasp on what your grant funds are. But you will need to remember this number, and then we're going to circle back to it as we exit this next section of the work plan. You will need to enter in this number on the first screen that we looked at. So keep an eye on this. Make sure you know the number. You can always navigate back. It's not like it's hidden and you can't come back to it. But you will need to know that grant funds, what the total amount of grant funds you've entered in on your budget. Again, it's right here for you. So we're going to save our budget page. And before I forget, And it almost did. Match worksheet, we see that here right at the top of the screen. Pretty self-explanatory, but this is where you're going to document where your match funds are coming from. Source of match funds, nice and simple and kind. There is a drop down here for describe the match source, federal, local, private, state, local. Our match total. Well, let me talk form of documentation required. This is kind of an odd one. It really probably should have been named something else because you're not requiring any documentation. You're not deciding what documentation is required. So I would recommend maybe just adding a little more description of what your match is coming from. And then you also have this narrative field. You can include that information. But you will need to document your match total. And as we see conveniently right here on the screen, we don't have to go back to our budget. The system's telling us, okay, this is what you've entered in on your budget. So now you need to demonstrate on your match worksheet that same amount. Again, for time here, I'm going to make it nice and easy. And again, you know, you may not do all 250 or all your match funds in one line. Maybe you're getting matched from different sources. Just like we saw previously, we have our plus button over here, creates the additional line for us. We can enter in more information. Again, not needed. We'll hit delete. Get us back to 1. Perfect. So we do have our match total documented here on our match worksheet. So we can click OK. Again, we've completed our budget, so we can X out of this. Let's take a look at the work plan here. Okay, project summary. I know there are some questions throughout the grant applications about your project summary, but you have another spot here where you can talk about that. This is a very large field. Don't worry about a character limit here. So far, we haven't seen anyone hit it. We don't even know what it is. It's so large. So don't worry about hitting a character limit here. But again, the narrative responses are limited to 2,000 characters, but that is not a problem here. So we're going to go down to our work plan, and this is a area that does cause confusion for grantees. Again, it's a thing we see at the help desk often, almost every time there is a grant application due. So you're familiar with entering a work plan, but we go through the steps here. And again, these are just a example. We'll do a test objective. Oops. And we're going to need to enter a description. And we're good. So what do? Each objective needs a task. Each task needs a performance measure. How do we get there? We have these handy little buttons here. We're going to enter in a task by just clicking the plus task button. We get an additional row here. I'm going to enter in the name and then also a brief description. And then we'll save. And then we're going to get an error message. I'll just to go to the top of the screen. At least one performance measure is needed under this task, just like we were talking about. Each task needs a performance measure. So again, click our performance measure plus button, and here we go. Now this is the spot that really causes confusion. And let me show you why. So I'm going to enter in a performance measure name, and I'm going to enter in a performance measure description. And as you see, those are all the fields available to me on the screen, right? Let's click the save button. Please see the message at the top of the screen. Struggling scrolling today. Performance measure response type is required. Okay. Where is that? It's not shown anywhere on my screen. So the first thing I would recommend when you approach your work plan is click this little arrow here. Show all columns. It expands the screen. Here's another example of our scroll bars, because if you're looking at this, you're going, well, I still don't see a place to enter in my performance measure type. If I scroll to the right, there it is. It's a little hidden. It causes a lot of confusion. As you can see there, there's a reason for it. It's not obvious what to do here. So again, when you approach your work plan, I would recommend, you can delete it, go back, click this little arrow here. This is in the manual. This is demonstrated here. It's in the video. It's out there, but it's not obvious when you're looking at this screen. But if we click show all columns, scroll to the right, here's our performance measure type and our text and comment. So we have different options here. The most common is text or comment. After you enter in that, you will need to enter in a text or comment. Now, when we save our page, see we get the green light there. We scroll to the top. No error messages, so we're all set. Now, what if you want to add more objectives? Which there's a good chance that you will. Maybe you want to add more tasks. If I want to add another objective, I simply go over here, click the box next to my objective, and click the plus objective button. You can click the plus task. I'm going to add a task under there, performance measure. Process continues. You can keep going. But it is key that if you want to add an objective, if you see I have the box checked here next to performance measure, I click objective. Please select an objective to create another objective. So if I wanted to do that, click this box next to objective 2. There we go. We got 3. Now we got a mess we got to get rid of because we don't need these all. How do we delete them? Which is also a good thing to show. Same process. I want to delete objective 1, but let me show you this one, or that's 3 actually. If I want to delete an objective, I check the box next to the objective, and I have this delete button up here. But watch what happens. Do you wish to remove this entry? This will also delete all associated tasks and performance measures. So if you delete an objective, it's going to delete everything under that objective, which may be what you want, but if not, something to be aware of. Click the yes button to see it removes everything. So let's get rid of this last one here. Nice and simple. There we go. So we have completed our work plan. We have completed our project summary. So we can save one more time just to be clear. Save often, as you see, that's the thing to do. We've entered in our budget. We've entered in our work plan. Let's return to our bid response. And let's just go with, okay, we're all done. We're set. Let's go ahead and submit this. And click our submit button. Amount requested on line 1 does not equal the budget amount. We talked about this one earlier, so let's take a look at it now. That's this little field down here. We were talking about grant funds. We need to enter in a dollar amount here that matches our grant funds that we entered on the budget. What's for us? I didn't forget already. I believe it was $1,000. Save. This bid is not complete. Okay, well, we thought we were, but let's save it. All right. Let's try to submit again. Errors have been found. Please correct all the errors before posting your bid. Okay, what do we got going on here? Let's scroll back up to the top. And we see response required. You must enter a response for general question 4. Okay, so if we scroll down, general question 4, it's also listed here. You'll see 12 executive order 16. So there's a couple of options there to determine where am I missing my response. Because as you see, once we get down here to question 12, 4 in order, it doesn't jump out at us that we missed it. So it's important when you see that error, scroll to the top to see the description. So just like we did previously, this requires an attachment. So we'll enter our file attachment. We're going to click our upload button and choose the file. Do it again, just to make it easy for us. This is an example. We'll click OK. Provide a brief description, preferably. Click OK. Okay, so now we have completed all the fields. Let's scroll down here again. Trying to hit the 11:45 mark. Let's see how I can do that. Are you done making changes, and would you like to post a bid? After you hit the submit button, you can't log back in and make changes to this grant application. You can come back in, you can view it, you can print out a PDF of it. Once it's submitted, you can't make changes. So be aware of that. Go ahead and review it. At this point, you should be confident you've reviewed it. Maybe it's still early, hopefully a couple days, and you can go ahead and submit this. But do be aware of that. Click yes. And there we go. We have submitted our bid. As you will know after you do this, the system will not send you an email telling you have submitted that. This was something that people were used to in the last system. That doesn't happen now. But you can see here on the screen, your bid has been successfully submitted. Maybe you want to take a screenshot, but you will not get an email. But how else can we confirm that? So let's just repeat these steps again. Maybe we've logged in, we've come back, we want to complete another application. We want to go look at what we submitted. So if we go back to our home screen, again, grants management state, bid event search. To HAM, you would do DC. Let me shrink that. We're going to do available. There we go. Here's our grant. Again, we're going to click the bid event ID to the left to look at our applications or initiate one. And again, we see 2 in process, but now we see submitted. So we can click this link. For the one we submitted, again, we see posted. So you have that screen. You successfully submitted your bid. You can navigate here. I see posted. I'm good to go. I want to look at my grant application again, just to view it. Click the view button. You see message. This is just telling us we cannot make any more changes. But you can scroll around. You can look at all the information you submitted. You can also, using this bid response PDF, get a PDF copy of everything that you submitted. Let's give this a second to open, and I'm hoping it gives me the pop-up. It did not, that's okay. So here we go. This is everything that we just submitted. In SFS, it's a PDF copy. You can print it out, save it to your computer, whatever you prefer. Here's our project site addresses, our narrative responses, budget, work plan. It's all here for you. So if you want a copy of what you submitted, that is how you get there. Again, on our homepage here, our grant application homepage, bid response PDF, that will get you a copy, PDF copy of what you've submitted. Okay, it is 11:45, and I think I've covered everything. Hopefully I did. Hopefully this was beneficial to everyone. And that leaves us 15 minutes for questions, and I'm sure most of them are about the program. So I'll step out. If there are any SFS related questions, I'll be glad to answer those as we go through that process, though.
Thanks, Brad. I'm going to start off with the SFS questions.
Okay.
So there's a few about, is there a way to sort of have like a worksheet or extract all of the info that's needed to go into SFS so that people can do, you know, the application before they have to do it like right in the program?
Yep, I would say the best option would be to, you know, again, I can't stress enough to get started early. Oh, let me share my screen. I'm sorry. I was talking about my screen and not sharing it. Yeah, so again, start early. You know, you can get in here and look at all these questions. The RFP document, all the questions are going to be there. You can go here and get them. The budget and work plan, obviously, it's not going to be in the PDF. You can also do what I just did straight out of the gate. As soon as you log in, you can click this bid response PDF. It's going to show you all the questions. It won't show you all the attachments that are required down here in events, comments, and attachments. But if you're just looking for, you know, how can I get my narrative responses going, I would recommend the RFP document and or this bid response PDF. What it's going to show you the questions, they're just going to be blank. So that would, I think, be the best option on that one.
Great. So someone commented that filling out the work plan template and where to upload attachments were confusing previously in another grant, and that several attachments wouldn't upload, and perhaps that some of the PDFs weren't compatible with the SFS system. So can you clarify like how and where people can do that?
Yeah, so yeah, that's a great question. I'm glad that was asked. The SFS system doesn't like too many other documents other than flat PDFs. It will accept Word documents, but again, flat PDFs, unsecured, no password protection, non-fillable. Non-fillable creates a lot of problems. The other thing which seems a little odd, and this is, we're getting really down in the weeds here, but it may be part of the problem this person encountered. Even the file name, it's limited to, I think, the less than 64 characters. I just saw the question pop. What is a flat PDF? Great question. It's non-fillable. It's just a PDF that can't be changed. We see a lot of maybe a PDF with an electronic signature that's still active. So it should just be flat PDF that no changes can be made, non-fillable. Forgot where I was going with that. The file names. You have to be no special characters in your file names. It has to be limited to 64 characters. There's a few things that once you get down in the weeds, it can cause you problems. What I would recommend, everyone's going to get tired of hearing me say this, start early, upload your documents early, and if you do have a problem uploading anything, please reach out to our help desk. We deal with documents all day long. If it continues to be a problem, you can even email them to us and we'll turn it into a flat PDF for you. And take care of it. But yes, documents can be an issue. The work plan template, I know sometimes DC provides that in the grant application, events, comments, and attachments. I don't recall if this one has it or not, but basically that is just your worksheet, offline worksheet to complete your work plan. And then you're still going to need to copy and paste that information into that work plan properties page that we see down here. But yes, if you have any problems with uploading PDF, uploading any document, start early, give us a chance to help you, and send us an email or a phone call at the help desk. And so far, we've successfully got everything uploaded, again, if people give us enough time. So just reach out to us if you have any issues.
It looks like Michelle chimed in that the work plan worksheet is in the RFA.
Okay. Good. And it's a great document, but again, it's just to develop your work plan outside of the system without having to be logged in and typing everything at once.
Can the soft login time be extended? 20 minutes of being idle is not long enough for some people if they're cutting and pasting and working on stuff. Can it be extended to 45 or 60 minutes?
I would love that, but it can't happen. 20 minutes is pretty much standard across systems like this. It's the same we had in our last system. It's the same that we have now. The way to defeat that is click your save button often. Every time you click that save button, it's going to reset for you. That clock resets. So if you're just typing, which was pointed out there, if you're just typing for 25 minutes, you click the save button, you may not be logged in anymore. SFS does have the pop-up, so it does warn you. I wouldn't rely on that. I've never relied on that as being completely accurate. And also, if you have your pop-up blocker on, which I do, that's not going to show on your screen. But again, the way to get around that, save often. It's going to reset that clock for you, and then you won't have to worry about it. I would love to extend it 40 to 60 minutes. That would be awesome. But it's just kind of the standard, and that's what we have.
Thank you. Okay, I think we've got some program questions now. Let's see. Do we happen to know what percentage of applications in category 2 previously have been awarded? How competitive is it?
Michelle did respond. I think check as well. She's been responding as we go along. I believe that one was answered, but nonetheless, we can't predict that based on into what will happen with this program.
Okay. There's a question about is it eligible to hire boat stewards for a private marina?
I forget exactly in the scoring if that is a disqualifying criteria or not. At the minimum, it would reduce your score significantly. There's a strong preference for public access. If you're saying it's a private marina, private water body, or if it's just a private marina to a public water body. If you refine that question, we'll give you a more thorough response.
Similarly, we have 2 adjoining lakes that are under 2 separate lake associations. We're wondering if our town is able to apply for a grant that would include both bodies of water. One has public access with a boat launch and a beach, and the other one does not have public access.
Again, there's some detail there as to whether they're hydrologically connected or not. If you refine your question, we'll get you a more accurate answer.
Okay. Question 6 in the decontamination section asks, is the proposed project already receiving funds from a New York State or federal assistance program for the same activities? And it's a pass-fail. They have an open grant that's almost complete for the same project, and it will be complete before the new contract would start. So how should they answer that question?
The intent obviously is to avoid overlapping or double dipping of funding from mixed sources. If the existing project you're being funded through expires before the start date of the potential application under this ISGP, then I would say that those are distinct and are not overlapping. So I would say it's no, I think, would be a pass.
Great. Can grant administrators discuss specific projects with applicants?
No, all questions should come through DLF grants.
Okay. Would round 4, this round, project category 2, cover the removal of ash trees that died from EAB?
Potentially, yes, within category 2 or category 4, depending on the details of how that work is enacted.
We have a program treating Japanese knotweed on private properties throughout the Adirondacks at no cost to landowners. It's been funded from private donations to Rotary Foundation. Could the Rotary Foundation apply for funding through this grant?
If the Rotary Foundation is registered as a not-for-profit 501c3, then yes.
Are partnerships with private landowners acceptable? If so, would landowners need to have a contract agreement in place with SFS or DEC beforehand?
The lead applicant still needs to be a qualifying entity to make the application. If a private landowner is partnering or contributing some contribution to the project, then that would be documented, but is generally acceptable.
Okay, I think that's all that I'm seeing that hasn't been answered in some way. So if your question hasn't been answered, we have saved the chat, and then we can respond to those by email. Questions and answers will also be posted on SFS, and you can also reach out directly to dlfgrants@dec.ny.gov. Take it over,
Yeah.
Josh.
Yeah, no, thank you, Andrea, for managing the question and answer periods. Yes, and this webinar will be saved and made available on the ISGP grants webpage on the DEC website. So please go back there for to rewatch the portions that you are interested in, or as well as to find answers to questions and things. So Yes, having said all that, thank you to all my co-presenters, and thank you everyone for taking time to sign on and learn more about the ISGP. We look forward to some great projects in 2026 and beyond, and thank you all.